I don't really know how to do an intro, so I guess we're just gonna jump into this. Over the years, there's been some pretty horrific occasions of certain fandoms going too far with their enjoyment of certain media and brash defensiveness of particular shows, actors, or characters. I'm sure anyone who's been on the internet long enough has at some point stumbled across the term shipping wars. Some of the worst examples are often traced back to certain fandoms that have either since or previously developed a reputation for toxicity. Think of Steven Universe and the multitude of absolutely insane discourse escalation that happened back when that show was big. Tumblr user being harassed and encouraged to commit suicide over drawing a plus-size character skinnier than she appears in the show, as well as other examples that received less coverage, like that time a grown-ass man running a fan channel started beef with a Make-A-Wish kid over him getting early access to information on what the writers were planning for a story. One of the writers getting harassed off Twitter by fans over her choice to explore the relationship between a particular set of characters rather than a different particular set of characters. And another case I witnessed personally, of a teenager being harassed en masse on Instagram and called a pedophile for wanting to see the protagonist of the show kiss his girlfriend. Putting that diffuse deep side aside, incidents like this have been cropping up in online fandom spaces for well over a decade now, and with the mass exodus from IRL to Twitter prompted by the pandemic, the issue only seems to be getting worse. For the last few years, especially on sites like Twitter, although thankfully with the end of COVID usage does seem to be dying down a bit, you've probably seen the word stan thrown about a lot to describe those mega fans overly invested in their communities, most notably the K-pop and Minecraft and wider video game communities. If you're above the age of a fucking zoomer, you're probably familiar with the origin of the term in the song Stan by Eminem as a descriptor of a crazed fan whose obsession leads him to do unsavory things. In more recent times, the term's gone through somewhat of a reclamation event, and the most dedicated fans of any given thing have taken it on as a badge of honour to show that they are the most devoted to whatever master it is they serve. And this kind of behaviour has been encouraged and, dare I say, stoked by certain figures in the community, most notably Dream, arguably the biggest content creator in the MCYT community for the last 2 years. Although it should be noted, due to his size, the encouragement of stans did not exactly go unnoticed, and some of those comments here are made up one of his many cancelling events. But that's a video for another day. I'm doing all this setup to essentially make the point that people who participate in fandoms can be really intense. And the combination of the added focus on intersectional leftist progressive politics online with a whole generation of teenagers being forced online by lockdowns created the unholy love child that is Minecraft Twitter, or MCYT, standing for Minecraft YouTube, community. More hypervigilant and self-censorious than pretty much any fandom that had come before, the fans were some of the most dedicated ever witnessed for any piece of media that the internet's ever enjoyed. For almost 3 years, there was a new major cancelling event coming out of this fandom every couple of days. And it wasn't even limited to the creators the way some of the internet's most infamous dramas has been. Like, you'd have the usual tweet mining to find something deemed inappropriate that some major streamer said 10 years ago, but people were doing it to people who were just like big names in the fanbase. You'd have fan accounts with upwards of 10 or 20,000 followers doing callouts on each other for posts they liked or people they followed. It was chaos. A lot of this came to a head in the summer of 2021, when the mob conscious of the Twitter fandom decided their next target would be notable YouTube streamer Technoblade. It's unclear whether the mass targeting of this one specific creator began in part due to his rivalry with Dream, and thus as a result of the Dream stans wanting an excuse to hate him publicly, while making themselves virtuous in the process. The mob may have just wanted a new witch to hunt, but I'm certainly not discounting it as a factor. Either way, old clips resurfaced to be taken out of context and weaponized, and the onslaught eventually led to Technoblade leaving Twitter altogether. Months later, after a period of relative radio silence on all platforms, Techno returned with the announcement that he had been diagnosed with sarcoma, a form of cancer. Needless to say, the news was all over Twitter as soon as it broke, and a lot of the accounts most vocal in their dislike of Techno quickly shut up and ran away with their tails between their legs. Following a brief return to content in the intervening months, largely focused on charity work raising money for research into his illness, Techno sadly passed away in June of 2022, with his father breaking the news online. If you're thinking you've heard the name Technoblade somewhere before, this is probably where. His death made international news, and almost every content creator, whether they knew him or not, was making some kind of statement of condolence. Following his death, Techno's social media was taken over by his father, who took the time to answer fan questions and share memories of his son. One message which stuck out to a lot of people within the fandom was Technodad's claim that Techno's cancer diagnosis had affected him less than the harassment he received around the same time. Remember how I just said the techno-antis? I realise I haven't explained that term yet, but just think of it as like the antithesis of Stan. Mostly disappeared when his diagnosis came out. Well, a few of the bigger accounts went silent for a short period, and then attempted to slither back into Techno's fandom like nothing had ever happened. I am almost proud to say that the fandom at large did not forget, and those responsible are routinely reminded that they were worse than literal cancer. The video up until this point has mostly been setup and background information, and that's a lot to do with me putting off talking about the main topic, because frankly it's just upsetting. An offshoot of the main Minecraft YouTube fandom is that for indie rock group Lovejoy, led by frontman Will. It's important to note that while the core fandom for Lovejoy is largely separate from the wider Minecraft community, on Twitter the whole Minecraft community knows about Lovejoy and regularly interacts with them, due to Wilbur's history and continued activity as a Minecraft streamer. With Lovejoy's rise in popularity came a rise in their own dedicated fan accounts, one of which was Tatawings, run by an individual known as Alice. The account got big from being one of the most active members of the community, from writing fanfiction based on the characters Wilbur and his friends would play during their streams, to posting gig photography taken at the first public shows. During November of 2022, it was revealed that Alice was running a private set of secret second accounts, which contained not safe for work content pertaining to the same streamers and characters featured in her main blog, in the form of fanfiction and discussion. At this point in time, Alice's main account was followed by quite a few big content creators, including members of Lovejoy themselves, so something like this coming out in the form of an anonymous burner thread made a big splash. Alice was sent a wave of death threats, and practically the whole fandom was coming out of the woodwork to call her some variation of a pedo and a freak, despite Alice being a minor herself at the time of writing. There were also calls for and direct threats of violence thrown at her. Alice never denied any of the claims levied at her, but made a thread explaining essentially what had happened from her perspective, and locked her account to stave off future harassment. At this time, some DMs between Alice and a former friend were also leaked. The situation had mostly cycled out of people's view as the current thing, when a series of tweets appeared on the Tatawinged account implying that Alice had the intentions to end her life, followed by radio silence. Another account belonging to a real-life friend of Alice started posting with the aim of getting the message out that Alice had gone missing and was not responding to messages, including providing links to missing person reports from local websites. You would think that seeing the escalation would make people reconsider whether the harassment campaign levied against a teenage girl for privately writing uncomfortable stories about real people was proportional to the crime, but apparently not. For the next months, we didn't really hear much more about what was going on with Alice. Her friend took over the Tatawinged account and a lot of tweets were deleted. A lot of the tweets shown in this video were archived prior to deletion, but beyond calls for her safe return from a few voices, there was really nothing. As of recording, it was announced on the 29th of December that Alice had been found dead on the 27th, presumably by her own action. And people are still going after her. I don't have words anymore. The fact that a person can get to the point where they see the news that a teenage girl killed herself over what is essentially 2022's woke answer to cyberbullying, and their first response is to say that not only she deserved it, and get angry at the people that are calling out the people who drove her to it, is just... Jesus Christ. This is sort of an addendum coming in post, but I've also just discovered this horrific thread where they compare Alice to an abuser and what she did as suicide bait. So, yeah, bit of an addendum going on. Well, it's kind of a somber topic to start the year on, but this is my first proper video, I suppose. Thank you for watching.